In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. It was a different translation, Bill, of the psalm. That's why.
Okay.
It's the same psalm, but a different translation.
Thank you.
Sure. 6 years ago, when I was near the end of the ordination process, I was a seminarian at St. John's Episcopal Church in Bridgeport. There is a Haitian congregation that worships in that church on Sunday afternoons, and because I still have a little high school French, I serve them occasionally. And one Sunday at one of those services, our diocesan bishop, Ian Douglas, came down to celebrate with them. At that point, he had been bishop for about 2 years. He's, in my opinion, been a terrific bishop. He's just a wonderful leader, and especially at this time in the history of the church. But I don't know if people remember this. He had been an unusual choice for bishop. He is the first priest in the 220-some years of this diocese, the first priest from outside the state of Connecticut, the Diocese of Connecticut, to be our bishop. And he's never been a rector. He came to us, he was a professor at Episcopal Divinity School in Massachusetts. That day in Bridgeport, before the service, in the vesting room, he and I were talking, and he asked about how I balanced my acting career with my life in the church. And I said, all through this time, I've just been putting one foot in front of the other, just trying to let the Holy Spirit lead me. And he looked at me, and he said, that's how I got here. Funny how that happens. I think what he was saying we had in common was this. At least this is what I thought of it. That as each of our lives began to turn in a new direction, we weren't too concerned with making long-term plans. But rather, when a choice about the next step in life presented itself, we would just try to do what seemed authentic to who we were, rather than thinking much about where that choice was going to land us. Because to do otherwise would have ended up feeling kind of sour. At least that's the way I thought of it. And looking back now, I think that was a way of paying attention to the Holy Spirit. I think most people feel uncomfortable talking about the Holy Spirit in their lives because such talk tends to sound like it's magic or like it's a claim to a certain spiritual status that others haven't quite achieved, and it just feels stupid and pretentious. These are legitimate causes for discomfort, and certainly the Holy Spirit is not to be talked about glibly. This is God we're talking about. But we all live in the reality of the Holy Spirit, to whatever extent we're aware of it. The reality of the Trinity is the foundational belief of the Christian church. We all live with God's presence within us. It's by that presence that we know God in the first place. Thinking about the Holy Spirit in our lives, cultivating an awareness of whether God might be nudging us on any given time in a particular direction, it takes a certain kind of attention. It's what I think Paul is pointing to in the famous passage from the letter to the Philippians when he says, finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, and so on. Think about these things. When you think about those things, you are setting your mind towards the presence of the Spirit. But however we think about it, putting one foot in front of the other, getting started, even if it looks to be in a very small way, and keeping at it in the life of the Spirit is essential. And it's putting one foot in front of the other that's at the heart of today's Old Testament reading from 2 Kings. This is the first of the great stories about the prophet Elisha, and it also happens to be the last of the great stories about the prophet Elijah. A prophet is someone who speaks truth to power in ways that usually makes the people in power very uncomfortable. So God needs prophets badly. Always has, always will. This is why, before the passage we heard today, God tells Elijah to anoint Elisha to be his successor. Evidently, Elijah's time is soon up. The Bible doesn't tell us anything about Elisha. We don't know why God makes this particular choice. Elijah finds him behind a plow on his father's farm. So as usual, it looks like God is choosing an entirely average Joe to do God's work. But we see something in the fact that Elisha goes with Elijah when he hears the call. He takes the first step. He puts one foot in front of the other. At the beginning of today's passage, we hear that Elijah is soon to die. Now, everyone, Elijah, Elisha, and the company of prophets who are accompanying them, everyone evidently knows that Elijah is going to die. And they also all seem to know that to be physically present at Elijah's side when he dies will somehow be to step across a big line in the life of the Spirit. They seem to know that Elijah's death is going to involve some great act of God. And to be present at that act, to witness it, will be, they seem to think, to proclaim a level of commitment to the Spirit of God that the company of prophets, at any rate, is not willing to make. But Elisha is. Elijah knows this too, Elijah repeatedly gives Elisha the chance to decline that step. And he does it in a way that would make it easy. He tells him, stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Bethel. Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho. Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan. Elijah's trying to give him an easy way out, to see if he's going to take the easy way out. And at each stage, Elisha refuses, swearing by the Spirit of God, as the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. In this oath, he is saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but I want to live by the Spirit of God, just as you have. Ignorant and helpless though I may be, and I'm making that commitment. I'm going to trust God, because God is to be trusted. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. The company of prophets try to warn him off. They ask Elisha twice, do you know that Elijah's going to die today? Meaning, do you know what you're getting into by going along with it? Are you prepared for this? Elisha pays them no attention. And on the last stage of the journey, we hear that 50 of the company of prophets, which means not all of them, some of them have taken a powder, 50 of them follow along, but when they reach the Jordan, even those stand at a distance from Elijah and Elisha, separating themselves from the event. But Elisha is there with Elijah. He's going to take that next step. And now that they're at the end of the journey, Elijah stops trying to dissuade Elisha and asks him, what can I do for you before I die? And Elisha says, let me inherit a double portion of your spirit. This guy's not afraid to think big. This is an indication of his faith, Elisha's faith, which is what makes it all work out for him in the end. Faith that there are no limits to what God will give to those who ask. Seek, and you will find. Ask, and it will be given to you. Where have we heard that before? Elijah tells Elisha, you have asked a hard thing, yet if you see me as I am being taken from you, it will be granted you. And if not, not. So we see that it is the Holy Spirit who is at work here. Elijah is saying, what you're asking is not up to me. It's up to God. And Elijah is a prophet, so he can see and then say, if God is going to give you a double share of the Spirit God's given me, then when I die, you will see something. I don't know what it is. And if not, not. And it comes to pass. Elisha does see Elijah taken up into heaven in glory and goes on to his own life as one of the greatest of the prophets. Now, we may not all have Elisha's faith. I don't. But we all have some faith, or we wouldn't be here. And we can all do what Elisha did. Put one foot in front of the other, not knowing where we're going to end up, but trusting in God, so that our faith, small though it be like a mustard seed, can grow into the greatest of shrubs that birds make their nests in. At the 10 o'clock, we are going to, all of us, reaffirm our faith in the baptismal covenant. We're celebrating a baptism today. We're baptizing a grown man who has been putting one foot in front of the other for some time now. I've watched it for about a year. The Spirit of God has been leading him, and today's led him here. But we don't know where the Spirit's going to lead him from here. I'm eager to see. That's true for all of us. But I will just repeat to him and to everyone the words of the voice from heaven in today's gospel story. This is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him. None of us knows where the Spirit will lead us. Today, tomorrow, whenever. But in Christian faith, we believe that if we listen to him as we put one foot in front of the other, then wherever we end up, it will be a place of freedom and peace and joy. Funny how that happens. Thanks be to God.
Amen.